right, James, you were opening up. Really, this is the first episode of Eternal Student. And so I really just wanted to start by just kind of getting to know you a little bit and kind of what you do, and then we'll go into kind of more
Yeah,
things in depth. So just a little
absolutely.
bit about yourself, you know, just a brief bio, kind of what
Yeah.
you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So my name is James Santos. Currently, I'm a full-time chaplain, corporate chaplain at a company called Mana Incorporated. I also am a therapist, a marriage and family therapist. I'm married to my wife, Tara, almost now 19 years. It'll be 19 years this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have five kiddos, right? So um, I have a 10-year-old named Abigail, a 12-year-old Daniel, 13-year-old Sophia, and then Benjamin, who's 15, and Hannah will be graduating this May. So she's my 17-year-old. So yeah,
Right.
life is full. Life is, as I say it these days, full and involved. But yeah, that's a little bit of what I do. Do chaplaincy work, therapy work, and just really like, I love just coming alongside people and holding space
Yeah.
for
Yeah. No,
people.
for sure.
So, yeah.
You remember the first time we met?
I was trying to like recall that. It seems like it's in like learning spaces through ADP, but refresh my memory because I was thinking about the same thing.
I mean, I think it was that. I think it
Was it
was,
okay?
in the training.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, you just kind of had this like really like attuned, kind of really interested, like
Yeah.
very nice, very engaging and inviting. So I think, yeah, we just kind
Mm.
of, and I don't remember that exact moment, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was.
I do. I think now I think about it because with the Vision Collective and
Yeah.
ADP and yeah, seeing you in a lot of learning spaces and seminars in ADP. And I've also heard your name through other friends as well. Like you got to meet Gerald Brooks, and so um, no, and it was good to finally do that. I think through some core training and such. I think that's when we really got to connect and know each other.
For
So
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, that I think that to me
that's it.
that was like the kind of deepening of, our relationship and friendship. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That was
no,
yeah,
it's it. That's
we'll
it.
get into that. We'll get into that. But so just starting with childhood, if
Yeah,
if you don't mind. Um, when you think about, what has impacted you, from, your upbringing,
yeah.
um, when you think about the earliest memories, um,
Hmm.
what kind of comes up for you when you think about family and, I just want to kind of leave it open, like
Yeah.
how you, uh, where you were born, kind of,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I love this question. One is I think there's a lot I've been thinking about. So, during the Christmas holidays of 2024, I finally was able to pursue a dream was to bring my whole family back in the Philippines, which
yeah,
that was a trip that we were supposed to take, in 2020, but we got to take it, this past year. And I just want to say, friend, I think I was anticipating, looking forward to a lot of things to take them. And then I think now that I'm back after that 2 week time there, I really, um, yeah, I discovered a lot of things as far as what I appreciated about, bringing my family. So yeah, I was born in the Philippines,
yeah.
and my dad was in the Air Force, so he was a Filipino citizen that got into the U.S. Air Force in '75,
Mhm.
and met my mom in around '77. and born in 78. And it was in Clark Air Force Base, Angeles City in the Philippines where I was born. Yeah, and grew up there till I was 8 and came here in the US, where my dad, finished his Air Force career in Florida. But yeah, I think, what comes to mind is people who really influenced me. And I um, thought a lot about this while I was there in the Philippines this past December, was my grandfather, which, in grandfather in the Philippines, we call him Tatay.
Okay.
And you know, when I think about him, he was larger than life. No, no, he didn't meet any stranger kind of thing. He was just this well-connected man. And even when I was there, his name was always mentioned a lot. Um, yeah, I remembered my grandfather, my tata, as I would, call him, as a man who just like always spent time with me, more so than I believe even my dad. It feels like I have so much more memories with my tatai than even my dad. And the things that stood out is one, he was such a people person, just one who could connect with anybody, in the Philippines, because he was a jeepney driver. Jeepneys were are kind of like our main transportation in the Philippines.
Okay.
And so, here is a man who only had a first grade education and had 9 children, and basically had all 9 children go to college. Hardworking man, and but yet very ambitious, very just goal driven,
Yeah.
and he wanted his kids to have the best education, which they did. Um, but I think what he passed on to me, Gerald, was his love for people.
Yeah.
Man, he could get along with any kind of people.
Yeah.
Even when he visited us in the U.S., which he did, because a big part of not only raising or sending his 9 kids to through college, but as much as possible seeing, kids of his come to the U.S. and also um, make a living here, get to come here in the U.S. And so he got to spend time with us in the U.S. And even in the U.S., uh, man, just the way he just would connect
Mm.
people was beautiful.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got I think I got a lot out of that. So, but I'll pause there. I didn't know if you had any follow up, but my tatai really, I mean, he was a major part in my life, and I think I see a lot of my qualities in him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I mean,
know.
as you're describing him, that's how,
Uh-huh.
I think I'll speak for myself. That's how I see you, and I know a lot of other people, see you like that as well. And I want
Yeah.
to ask, what happens when I say that? What do you?
No, thank you. That means a lot. Even just as you say, I felt just a warmth over me. And I think that's what he brought. He
Yeah.
just made you feel um like, he made you feel comfortable and in your skin, like, um always welcoming. I So it's interesting. So one of my favorite definitions of stories is by Eugene Peterson, and he said stories are inward acts of hospitality.
Mm.
And man, he just had a way of just not only telling stories, but inviting you to tell your story.
Yeah.
And it felt like this hospitality like no other, because it was one that was inward. Um, and I would have memories of him, Gerald, of just being out in the corners of streets and would just like, just cut up, with friends. But he just knew how to. He would always have people around him,
Yeah.
and he was just, anywhere you went, they call him Munkarding. That was his kind of like nickname, but he was just really known. But he just knew how to, yeah, just connect, but hold space. I think that's why people loved him. And yeah, I see a lot of him, and just, yeah, hearing you say that, I love doing that as well today.
Yeah. Yeah.
For
It's
people,
there. We see it. We see it. I know.
you know.
Personally, man, just how there's a picture I think eventually be okay to share, like, if
Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah. No. No, I know that's picture well, man. That's
oh,
I can picture it even right now. Yeah, thanks for even just reminding me that. Yeah, it's powerful, you know. And I think that's what it's all about. I think, as one of the things I hold, that the quality of one's life is determined by the quality of their relationships,
100%.
and I think that's true, and I think my grandfather modeled that. My mom modeled that. I think greatly too, because she was a nurse, and so she
Okay.
was kind of my kind of Florence Nightingale. She just knew how to do patient care.
Yeah.
So a lot of my training grounds was she would bring me in the hospital and visit patients, and I think that's why chaplaincy, has been
Okay.
integral. Because not only was I corporate chaplain, but I don't know if I shared this to Gerald. I was also hospice chaplain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I did that for 4 years. Yeah, just having the honor to be with the ones um, who are dying
Yeah.
and talk about stories there.
Yeah.
That was a season where patients taught me the gift of tears, the value of presence.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, and just generous attention. I think is something that I learned. But yeah, just all that. So my mom, grandfather,
Yeah.
um, two influential people, pastor, in Florida named Bill White. So when I was born in the Philippines, but grew up mostly in Florida, went to middle or elementary, middle school, and high school there. But church was also another kind of landing place or space where I learned relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the kernel of, or this core of who I am is, yeah, just relational through and through, both learning that from my culture and then growing up.
Yeah. So I
So
remember even listening to you speak, I'm like, man, this dude, he is slowed down, intentional with what he has to say, like it's directed. He's not afraid to say something. Sometimes I have, trouble with the, deep emotional sharing or, even saying the words. I may feel that way, but he
yeah.
just kind of like, he didn't care. He
Mm,
was just like, I'm like, and I learned a lot of that,
oh,
in core training with you, to
yeah.
be more, still and to just be more connected with what it is I'm truly feeling and not hide from that. So I'm still working on it, but
Yeah.
I saw that a lot and that kind of inspired me to kind of, work on myself in that way too. So thank you for that.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. Thanks for
Okay.
sharing.
Yeah. And so as a kid, like who
Uh-huh.
who was young James? Was he playful? What did he like to do? Uh
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
very so how I was described, very playful, a lot of energy, can be mischievous at times. Um yeah, I think that was a lot of the words that would, shared. There's an uncle, one of my favorite uncles, we call him Tito, in the Philippines, and we were only 7 years apart. He was the youngest out of the nine, and he would. He even said to my kids when we visited there how he disliked me, because for some reason I guess I would get him in trouble, you know, and in ways too. He also mentioned that my Tatay, which was his dad, would have like a liking or favoritism of me over him. Um, so yeah, I think the dynamics there, I had, yeah, full of energy, full of life. Yeah, I had a lot of friends, loved playing basketball, loved any racket sport.
Okay.
Just out in the streets with neighbors. That's how I remembered, myself as a toddler. And but yeah, I just love hanging out with friends. I was always outside.
Yeah.
But I was always with friends. I think that's, if
Connected.
I were to track, a lot of my life, maybe that's still some of a lot of my fears. I feared being alone, and
Okay.
yeah, I think
Okay.
um, connecting was a way of yeah, remedying, I think, my a lot of my
Yeah.
aloneness,
Yeah. Wow.
um, but yeah, that I think that's, yeah, describe who I was, child, teenager, same thing, very active.
Yeah. Was
um,
there, looking back as a child, was there anything that, as you reflect now that you didn't receive, like fully, that comes up?
yeah, yeah, I when I was with, in the Philippines, this Christmas, there's a memory, core memory that I think, you know, um, gets a little bit of some of my fear as even an adult. And I think
Mm.
there are parts of me, young parts of me, that fear being rejected and abandoned.
Uh,
And so, yeah, I think I was 3, Gerald. And I've always had this question in my mind, like, was mom aware about attachment theory, which she wasn't.
mm,
But there was a story where I was supposed to accompany my aunt, which was my mom's sister, to the U.S. And for some reason, my parents had gone ahead in the U.S. for some reason, and I was supposed to accompany um, my aunt. But what happened was her visa fell through, and I stayed a little bit longer in the Philippines than I had. So I think maybe a month I was kind of, I call it stranded or left in the Philippines. And I think it did. It created this kind of trauma of, man, I was separated from my parents for that. I don't know how, I think my mom said it was a month.
yeah.
But so talk about, yeah, need. I think if there is a need um that I look back now is, yeah, knowing that yeah, is that connection again.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and maybe too the assurance that um, someone won't leave me.
There you go. Yeah. Wow.
So I think that's a big theme in my life. Like I feel
Yeah.
there's this theme of fear of people leaving me,
Yeah.
or maybe even in a deeper level is, can I be loved for who I am, and they won't leave me.
Right. Wow.
You know. Um, but yeah, if that gets at what you're asking, I think that's
Yeah.
something that's consistent in my
Yeah.
childhood. You know.
Yeah. Do you think any of these experiences, I mean, both chaplaincy and therapy, when
Yep.
hearing you talk about, the influence of your parents, your grandfather, you know, led you to like this path, or what
Well, they say that, right?
inspired
Is
you? Yeah.
right. Whatever wounds we're able to come face to face with is what leads us to, I think, particular professions.
Mm.
And I think there's that phrase, being a wounded healer,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
right? And I think our wounds do lead us to what we do today. So no, I think there's something deeply profound, I think, Gerald, that a lot of who I am today and showing up with clients and
Hmm.
patients and people with, stories of trauma. Um, I always say, what we bring before clients is not just a mirror to their own hearts, right, and their own stories, but it's a double mirror, right? It's also
Oh yeah.
a mirror back to us, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
And so I don't know. I think what I've understood, or how what I'm continually learning as I meet with clients is, yeah, it's an opportunity to once again, be curious and compassionate
Yeah.
with my own story. Um, but yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the things that I've learned along the way, in growing up with people, what I do today professionally, right, chaplain and being a therapist, is, you know, I'm seeing my story unfold.
There you go. There
You
you go.
know, like
Yeah.
my story is your story is mine, and it's it's how we all work through it.
Yeah.
But I mean, which one of the things that I think you and I share, because being in ADP, is that's why I think the phrase "undoing aloneness"
Hmm.
has been such a um, again a profound truth, right? Is that
Yeah.
as our mentor or friend Diana's given us a working definition of psychopathology. It's the unwanted and unbearable lowness in the face of big emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think as I look at growing up, there were a lot of big emotions, also with a lot of unwanted aloneness. And
Yeah. Wow.
there's something about the Tatays of the world and our moms and friends of the world
Yeah.
that has undone that. And now we're doing that as well with people that we're helping,
Every day. Yeah.
you know.
And this is a pet peeve of mine, right? Um, where there's this idea like the therapist has to
Yeah.
have this perfect life and they don't experience some of these same things, right? And so we know that's false and I think damaging from my perspective.
Yeah.
Um, we all face challenges, right? We all face, these uncertainties or different, traumas in our life. And so when you think about yourself early in your career in both,
Yeah.
um, was there like a defining moment or an experience that you could share that kind of ties that together? Like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and how you
There's
overcame it. Yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, one of the things that I think has surfaced time after time, um, I was a freshman in high school,
Hmm.
and you're right, therapists are not perfect, and yeah, I think one of the defining ones, and that's part of the things that I've processed with my own therapist of
Hmm.
there a moment in ninth grade where because I I was the oldest of two. I have a sister,
Hmm.
and something went down, you know, um, in our home that you're right, really propelled me to grow up faster than I wanted to. Uh,
Hmm.
and I remembered in ninth grade taking on a responsibility where, like, um, I was called not only as a son to do something, but I felt like I was being called to a man, right? Being called to only what James Santos can do.
For sure.
And and I think what it revealed about me, one is, you know, um, one of my mentors as well in counseling is Sue Ann Polera, and she said,
Mhm.
just she's the one who has taught me about and modeled what fierce love looks like. Fierce love in behalf of my parents, my sister. But yeah, I remember, that being in ninth grade to be a defining moment. One, my faith is a very important,
Hmm.
and I felt like, there was this calling that, in my life, I would be coming alongside of people. I would carry, stories, that people needed me to carry.
Mm.
Um, I think too, Gerald, in ninth grade, I think also was an invitation of what does it look like to be a compassionate witness to other people's sorrow.
Wow.
Um, because, it was something about ninth grade that called me to like experience, I think, one, we all have dynamics in our family that um, we all are in dysfunctional ways, but it was one of those, what I had to show up with mom and dad or sis, but yeah, they they needed somebody to be not only a son or a brother, but a compassionate witness.
Mm,
Um, and I think it was that ninth grade moment where, like, okay, this is who I am, you know. And I think I still am unpacking that because I think the whole, the question who I am is an ongoing question I'm always answering.
yeah, no, for sure.
Um, but yeah, I think, and then I think I see what I've done, with or what I've stepped into with chaplaincy and being in therapy. But a lot of I think that the learning spaces has been at home.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, ninth grade I can say there is this conversation that went down with my parents where like, okay, I think I know my calling. My calling is to draw near to the brokenhearted,
Yeah.
and hold space. Um, and not a lot has changed since then. Um,
Mm.
you know, so, but yeah, ninth grade was one, I would say.
What about as a therapist, like early or in chaplaincy, what experience was defining for you to, really that you maybe reflect back on or even
Yeah.
you felt since now, like what comes up?
Yeah, definitely hospice chaplaincy was a big one, that 4 years. I mean, and I think if I think back, Gerald, um, it taught me about presence,
Mm,
right? And, one of my beloved quotes is by Simone Weil, right? Attention is the purest and rarest form of generosity.
yeah,
Um, because, with people dying, I mean, it's every day.
yeah,
What you gave to them was your transformed and transforming presence. And that's all they wanted, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot you could like say to people who are given a diagnosis of 6 months or less to live,
mm,
but they wanted you to be present.
right,
And I think presence to me, one is showing up. Um, Presence is being who you are as you are. Um, yeah, presence says I'm here, right? And
mm,
we'll hold this together. Uh, I think hospice as well taught me about tears, you know, um, where it does, tears, um, that really, is one of the most vulnerable, like experiences, right? Which, you and
right,
I do share a
oh yeah,
story,
yeah,
because yeah, tears have a way of revealing something true, deep in someone's heart and soul. I
yeah,
mean, when you have in the scriptures Jesus wept, that's probably one of my favorite, and yet deep,
yeah,
because right, you there's something that reveals a lot about people, when they're weeping. Um, so yeah, I've also learned how to honor that. I mean, it's interesting because the older I get, the more weepier I am. For some reason, I think what I'm beginning to understand is, um, I think I'm just more aware of my own heart. I'm aware of my story. I'm aware of, my sadness, all
yeah,
the, you know, um, all my emotions, right? So, um, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, hospice was huge for me. Um, I think being a minister too. I don't know if I shared that. So not only being a chaplain, but a
mm,
therapist, but I'm also a non-staff pastor. Um, so I think church life and coming alongside people who are in church has taught me
yeah,
a
no,
lot.
for sure,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
um, but I don't know. I go back to presence. Presence is one of those kind of words that stuck out. Like, even as I was sharing my story in ninth grade, like man, what my mom and dad, my sister needed there was presence.
Yeah.
Um, because presence, yeah, that's what you give. And I think, yeah, that quote, transform and transforming presence, is one of my spiritual mentors quotes. He says, James, one of your greatest gifts in life is your transformed and transforming presence. And I'm going to add this. I think
Ooh,
what we bring to people is also our healed and healing presence.
yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
A lot. Yeah, it makes sense for sure.
You know?
When you're talking about, I'm more weepy now.
Uh,
I think when I hear you say that, for me, it's like, no, you know what? You have the courage to be who you are, right? And I think
okay.
who we are at a root, right, is
Yes.
this emotional being, and I think having the courage to be vulnerable and cry and
Yeah.
still, I mean, we could go on about the toxic masculinity, but
Yeah.
be able to truly express your emotions. I
Yeah.
think that's courage. At least that's what I
Yeah.
hear when you said that.
Well, I was thinking about courage because one of my favorite, literary writers and person in the world is Maya Angelou, right?
Mm,
And Maya said, right, I think is without courage we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency,
yeah.
right? We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest. So,
Mm,
yeah, just wanted to, yeah, there's that. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency.
yeah.
I think it's important, you know.
It's I don't want to say funny, but when you think back um, to that ninth grader, right, that had that very difficult situation, maybe uncertain about some things. I mean, who knows? At the time, if you just kind of visualize him in the moment and knowing you said that was my moment where I knew, boom, what advice or what would you say to him, as he's walking into these fields or different paths, therapist, minister, chaplain. Like, is there anything that in the moment you would say to him?
Yeah. Wow. Actually, in my program, wrote a paper and took like each of my like selves, infant self, toddler self, adolescent, and adult self. And so yeah, I think as I envision, so I like this exercise as I think of my freshman ninth grade self, I would say, first of all, I said, one, you are a strong man,
Mm,
right? You are a resilient man. You are a man that loves well.
mm,
And I think I would also say you're seen, you're known, and so enough, and
yeah.
so loved, and you're good enough.
Mm,
I think that's what I would say. Um, you're so enough, you're good enough, you're well enough, you're loved.
yeah.
Yeah.
You imagine like his face. What would that, you said,
Yeah, no, I mean that's what's I mean even I'm looking at him and um yeah, be you, right?
yeah,
Be you because it's like that quote, be you because everyone else is taken,
taken.
right? Be you.
Yeah,
No one else inhabits your world but you.
yeah,
Be
yeah,
you because everyone else is taken,
yeah.
you know. And I think he was, figuring that out. And I think, the from ninth grade to who I am today, which 47 is coming quick. That's next Tuesday for me.
Hey,
You
yeah.
know.
Happy birthday.
Um,
I'm February too. We see
oh
you.
yeah, that's right. When is your birthday?
22nd.
20. Okay. You said 26th?
Second, 22nd.
Second. Okay. Yeah, mine's the 18th.
Okay.
Um, yeah, no, I think, this is one of the things about, learning parts work, right? It's advancing even that ninth grade and to know that ninth grade become, 12th grader and then, this college, person and got married at 28, 5 kids, in ways have been blessed with just beautiful jobs and helping people. And
Hmm.
he became a 40-year-old, 45, and now it's going to be 47.
Right.
And what was true, from the beginning of time is still true today, right?
Yeah,
He's so loved and so enough,
for sure.
So I don't know. That's as I'm like looking at him, right, man, just also just advancing him in
For
all
sure.
those chronological years. And
Yeah,
it's like, man, you became me, right?
for
You
sure.
are me.
Yeah.
Um,
Aged courage.
that's right. Age courage,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Age courage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of courage, right? A lot of stepping out,
Sure. Yeah, man.
you know.
So, you know, my grandfather, he had this button on his
Mm.
vehicle. It's on his visor, and it said life begins at 40.
Oh yeah.
And when I turned 40, I really, grabbed a hold of that. 40,
Yeah.
41 now. And so when you look at that section, of your life, 40 up, um, let's focus there a bit, like
Yeah.
hold. But so I want to also get into like therapy, if we can
Yeah.
focus
Yeah.
there. So I want you to think of, your 40-year-old self and up, um, when answering these, if you can. I mean, if
Okay.
it fits, it lines,
Yeah.
uh, it's whatever happens, happens. So, um, how would you describe your therapy approach?
Yeah. Therapy approach would be definitely relationally oriented, healing oriented, very here and now, um, moment to moment, just present,
Okay.
right? I mean, that's how I would describe it. Very transformational, right? Or I know the shorthand is making the implicit explicit, the
Yeah.
explicit experiential relational. And I think that's something transformational is going to take place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between your 40-year-old self and here with what you just said?
So again, is there a difference
There's a
between?
difference in terms of your philosophy of, therapy or we can just bring it out like connecting to people, what you were just saying. So your 40-year-old self
Yeah.
and then you now,
Yeah.
is there a difference in terms of your understanding of therapy? Let's just say.
Yeah, I think, I mean, from 40 to now 47, I think what I'm coming to more just realize is you've been doing it. You've been doing it, and you just now are coming to awareness that, oh, that's the fluency, that's the language, and now I'm giving kind of the
That's
the
it.
the names to this, right?
Yes.
So I think it's been in my DNA, it's been in my body, it's been in my bones, and I think as I advance in age, it's like, oh, that's what you call it.
That's it.
I think. I mean, I don't know. I'm just
No, it's
processing.
what if that's what you're
Yeah.
right,
I
go with
think
it.
there's a more of an affirmation. It's like, yeah, you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I, look at that, like that transformation, 40 to now. I mean,
Yeah.
the ninth grader was doing it, but didn't have the language to define exactly what that is. And as we go from general now to specific, now you can,
Yeah.
define that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is. It's kind of this transformational or like click of awareness. Like, wow, I'm
Right.
doing this.
There it is. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, this is me.
Yeah.
right? I'm showing up and, you know, yeah, and then I think it's also accompanied, Gerald, maybe this too is to kind of like even speak of it, just you feel more alive,
There it is.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think from 40 to 47, it's to say, yeah, it's been there, but it's like, wow, like, oh yeah, the awareness
Yeah.
is coming alive to it, coming awake to it is another way, I guess I was saying it,
Yeah.
saying,
Okay.
yeah.
And as a therapist, what do you think is the most important quality, right,
Hmm.
for a therapist to have?
Yeah. I think, well, there's the one that sticks out, right? Is the word empathy, right? It's the I'm feeling with, right? It's the attunement,
Yeah.
right? A very um, vigilant attunement,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, and a therapeutic presence that says, "Man,
Yeah.
I got you. Like I have so much space for you."
Yeah.
Right? I think those are some of the qualities that in to make a good therapist
Yeah.
is that from the get-go people feel safe, and the reason they feel safe is they sense that empathy, that attunement,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
therapeutic presence.
Yeah.
There's just this open space, like, oh,
Yeah.
I can like, I can exhale.
Yeah. I
I don't
can
have to
share
hold my breath.
whatever
I
with
can
this
share
guy.
whatever. I think
Yeah.
those are some of the, I mean, yeah, the therapeutic stance is really, really important, safety from the get-go.
Yeah. Okay.
You know?
What would you tell a younger therapist
Mm,
coming into the field? You know, all this is happening now. We know there's been changes,
yeah.
politically, socially, all of these things, right? And keeping in mind what your clients come in for. To a young therapist,
Yeah.
what would you say? It's just kind of open some important,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think, this has come alive within me, from, being in our ADP community, and I think being with, core self-reclamation therapy with Sue Ann. I think it's believing in who you are, your core self, like what your own healing energy, right? Like, hey, trust your voice,
that's it.
right? Trust your giftedness. Like know that, and I think everything else will be taken care of. But like, can you trust your voice,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And I mean, I can hear some young therapists is like, what is that? You know,
yeah,
and here's the thing, I think the wanting to want to know like what that is to me says a lot about a person,
yes.
right? And here's the thing, nobody can tell you that. I mean, I think it's something you discover
I get it.
as you
Gotta
step
go find
into it.
out. Yes, for sure.
So yeah, I would say, yeah, to a young therapist, yes, you got the education, yes, you got the degree, yes, you got the certification, but at the end of the day, can you trust in your core self? Can you trust in your healing energy?
Hmm.
Right? Can you trust in who you are? Because again, everyone else is taken.
Going.
So I don't know. I mean, that's what's coming out, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean it's what's needed, and I think the importance of us doing our own work, that's how you find it.
That's right.
That's how you find it.
Yeah. Right. Be a beginner. I mean, that's
Yeah,
another thing. Always be a beginner.
yeah. That's right.
Always have this approach like I'm always learning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's kept a lot of the joy and excitement is, man, there's not a day that passes by where like, man, I learned something today.
Yeah.
I learned something about myself. I learned something about my client that I didn't know.
Sure.
Right? Be a beginner, be a learner,
Yeah,
be yourself.
for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think is misunderstood about the therapeutic process?
Yeah, I think oftentimes that like if um they just get a bunch of techniques and tools, they'll be all right. When I think it's, you know, and it's not to where, you know, at the end of maybe the journey of a therapeutic process that all the defenses go away kind of thing,
Yeah. No,
right?
right.
Like and that, you know, your therapist will do that for you, but I think a good therapist is not going to give you all the answers.
Yeah.
But it's more of, I think it was Rilke says, learning to love the questions, because it's in loving the questions that you'll find your way, in the answers kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a misunderstanding. I think in therapy is that you come to a therapist thinking like, they're gonna help you, heal every trauma and figure out all your defenses and not have to struggle with traumatic memory states anymore. And I think, no, I think good therapy learns, invite. It's more invitational,
Yeah.
inviting you to
Yeah.
appreciate all these still unknowns and questions in you. And you know what? It's in, again, making the implicit, explicit, experiential,
Sure.
relational, that you realize, wow, down beneath is this the wisdom of our bodies, the wisdom of our stories,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, that's a misunderstanding, is like that, you know, our therapist or a therapy, um, you know, washes us away from all struggles and suffering.
Okay.
So
Yeah. No, what do you think helps grow, helps people grow the most in therapy? So what do you think helps people grow the most in therapy?
yeah, I think what I've come to understand is, man, I think the picture, and I got this from Suan, is I can embrace myself as the best internal caregiver for my young wounded parts. And
Mm,
I can stand in my core.
mm,
Because when I can like stand there, like, and know like I have resources today that my
yeah,
like younger parts didn't have, and they realize like, yes, we got it,
right.
right? I think that's healing, right? That's memory reconsolidation,
Sure.
right? That's flourishing. And
Yeah,
because from that, right, I mean, that's going to be the thing that's going to be contagious, right? That's
yeah,
what you give away. And I
right.
think that's going to always be palpable, because people who, right, experience healing are
Yeah,
the non-anxious presence, in our lives.
for sure. For sure.
Like you just feel this wholeness. You feel this like, you know, this life-giving energy.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think it's, yeah, your question there. Yeah, I think healing is owning what has always been true of us. It's just through trauma, right? We've lost sight truly of our core. I mean, I one of the things that one of my favorite like Hebrew psalms is,
mhm,
we're wonderfully made, and I love this end quote of, and my soul knows this very well. Like, can we get there?
yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, I think that's healing, because what we know very well, we're able to give to others.
for sure.
Um,
We gotta go get it.
we
Got it.
got to go get it. I mean, you've said that a couple times now, right?
Yeah, have to. Yeah.
So
What do you, and going off that, what is the therapist's role in helping people get to their true selves?
yeah, yeah, no, and I think the greatest help one is that, we and again, there's skills to this, there's awareness.
Yep, yep.
I think, yeah, for a therapist is, can you stay present? Can you stay so attuned? Can you stay so micro, moment to moment tracking, that you are able to, right, hold space for what is happening as it is happening,
Right.
right? It's this collaborative noticing
Hmm.
that's taken place. I think that's, one of Ben Lipton's phrases, right, from ADP. And again, I have to just go back. I mean, this is that that rhyme, right? Can we make the implicit explicit and name that together?
Yeah.
Like make it experiential, make it relational.
Yeah.
And again, I think something transformational always takes place.
Yeah.
I think that to me, if a therapist can do that, man, look out.
Let's go.
I mean, we both have seen it. Like something emerges. I mean, that's the word, right? Something emergent,
Yeah. Yeah.
phenomenological happens, right? Something just comes because our clients feel the safety of our presence, of our care, and they feel like their true selves,
For sure.
you know? So I think, yeah, when we can stay in this open-hearted or like rooted place, and we just open the space with people and micro track and just co-create the safety. I mean, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that's the greatest gift that we can
Yeah.
give to our clients and
Yeah.
as a therapist.
Yeah. And that's why, for me, Eileen Russell's work on a transformational other, how
Yes.
important that, I started to see myself different in terms of my role as a therapist or dad or brother, you know,
Yeah.
grandson, husband, so dad. So with clients being able to go deep
Yeah.
again requires us to do our own deep work, right?
We have to.
Because if you can't go there,
Yeah. Our clients won't go there.
they ain't going there. Deep
No.
water, I like to call it.
I like the yeah, deep arts exactly. Like I mean, yeah, we can't we can't invite our clients to places that we haven't gone ourselves. I
So
mean,
yeah,
that's just the way of parallel processing and because whatever emerges right in the counseling field or the in session is just we're gonna always feel the activation or you know transference counter transfer it's just a lot you know
you got to be real with that.
that's right.
It's not
Yeah.
like and this is the thing with untroubled therapist, or there's a book, Myth of the Untroubled Therapist. I think that's the name, but um, this myth that we got all our shit, we're pieced
Yeah.
together, or everything's together, so
Yep.
it's not. No, we have our struggles as well,
That's right.
and admitting, when things are hitting you. I think that's, AEDP anyway. That to me, I was like, man, that right there, being able to truthfully say,
Yep.
obviously without harming your client, like how
That's
that
right.
impacted me.
Yep.
That's real. You put
That's
it,
real.
it's gonna be there. You
So
put it on
real,
the
right?
table.
I love one of those interventions is that judicious self-disclosure
Yeah.
can be part of the therapy, right? We can disclose in a very discerning and intentional way.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
So obviously the podcast is eternal student. When you're talking about continuous learning, always staying engaged. I never look at myself as an expert. That's kind of this whole
Yeah.
what this podcast is about, because I learned so much from you and my clients as well. Like, I try to learn and be open. And
Yeah.
so, how do you, because I know you're a student of life, right?
Yeah.
Um, balance um, that with also helping other people, not just clients, but with their own journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. When I hear you say the word balance, like, I mean, as we're talking about therapy, you have to talk about self-care, I mean, that's the first thing that came and emerged in me as you said it. Because, what we do, right, with clients is it's no light and walk in the park.
Yep. Yep.
There is something that energy that's taken, that's being poured.
Yeah.
And I do know, I think the balance, I think, Gerald, and I'm still learning this is, yeah, what does self-care, today looks like, you know, I mean, today, this week, this month, this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's like taking, those before jumping onto a next client, right? Even 5 minutes to just breathe, right? Or
Yeah.
step out.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it is saying, I'm going to take at least a day or half a day where I retreat to, favorite
Yeah.
spots,
Yeah.
which, one of the things I love doing is walking and trail running and
Okay.
um yeah, just being out in nature and out in trails, um that
Mm.
to me is self-care. Or there's actually an abbey, here in Kentucky, kind of a monastery, and just has, and it's a kind of a silent retreat. So just even silence for me and befriending silence and solitude
Yeah.
has become, a form of self-care. But yeah, just being able to tune into my own heart and
Yeah.
to ask, like, how are you, doing,
Yeah.
right? Doing a lot of that. So yeah, self-care, right? Like getting sleep, eating when you need to eat, right? Listening to body cues. That's another thing.
Mhm.
um so yeah, it's the balance, right? Is how is James Santos pursuing self-care? um I think is my kind of quick answer to that.
Yeah. No.
um,
And if you could pass one thing,
uh-huh.
right, to every listener, hopefully people will tune in and listen, right? If
Yeah.
you could pass based on what we've talked about, today, if you can pass one thing on,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. But I'm going back to another Maya Angelou quote.
Do
Is
you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love her quote that says, people will forget what you've done to them, what you said, but what people will never forget is how you made them feel,
Hmm.
good or bad.
Hmm.
That's the thing. And I think, yeah, when we have that more approach to life, and that again goes, with presence, right? We're always giving our healed and healing presence. That's enough.
Yeah.
Your transforming presence. That's enough.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, if you can like really embrace your enoughness, I don't know. I think, man, you're going to do a lot of beautiful things in the world,
Mm.
So I don't know. That's how maybe, yeah, just to end.
And that's your truth. That's what, and again, just being able to share that. I do want to end
Yeah.
with these three
You
words. I'm gonna give you three words, man.
Yeah.
And there's no rules to these words, right?
Okay.
These are the three words that came up for me
Okay.
to you.
Yeah.
Play,
Hmm.
curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
and kindness.
Wow. Play, curiosity, and kindness. Yeah. When I hear you say play, um, don't take yourself too seriously,
Um,
right? Curiosity. Yeah, curiosity to me opens up so many possibilities in the world if one stays curious. I
mm,
mean, infinite possibilities,
yeah,
right? Um, kindness, yeah, kindness um, is the gift that keeps on giving. It's um, it always leads to further upward spiraling. I mean, that's the kind of image that's coming up when I think about kindness.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
Right.
yeah, play, curiosity, and kindness.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I appreciate it. We're gonna do this again
Man, love it.
and
When
again.
you even said words, I was like, oh man, Gerald is a wordsmith and a lover of words. So when you said that, I was like, oh man, those are some great words.
Yeah, yeah.
So, now this was fun. Thank you, man. I feel my soul full, and yeah, I'll sleep well tonight.
It's good, man. We're gonna do it again.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Thanks for the invite. I'm glad that we were able
Oh,
to make this a reality.
oh yeah. Well, ours is coming. It's coming.
It's coming, right?
It's coming. We're gonna put it together. So, all right, man.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you,
All right.
man.
Bye
All right.
bye.
We'll see you.